As Hans Olsen has moved on to the corporate world, we're looking for the next great Utah sports radio talent.
There's something for everyone.
While we do that, you get stuck with this guy.
Hey, everybody, here's our star.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, welcome on in. All right, I was going to start the show by just kind of laying out what the future holds. I tried to give this big tease on Twitter this morning, say, hey, listen at high noon. I'm going to lay out the future of the show. And I'm going to do that eventually, probably around 12:30. I promise. But Danny, Austin Ainge, the Utah Jazz kind of threw a wrench into things.
Justin
Zanuck, the rest of the crew. This has Zanuck written on it a little bit too.
Uh-huh.
So Ben Anderson's hanging out with me. Again, Hans Olsen is ridden off into the sunset. I will give you all the details on that, but this is why you listen to this show. This is why you listen to the station, is when news breaks, we're here for you. When you're at your emotional peak, we're here for you. So let's talk trade.
But I'm not your long-term co-host.
Do you want to be?
I would love to, but I don't think Jake's going to let me go. Okay. Or maybe he'd gladly. I don't know. I guess I didn't ask him. But if people are tuning in, that's not the plan.
Yeah, I'm not as of right now. Okay, here's a sneak peek. When people ask me what the long-term plan is, I say, I don't know.
Okay.
That's the answer right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll get to that, though. All right, initial thoughts. Jazz acquired Jaren Jackson Jr., 26 years old, 3 years left on a monster contract. The final year that will pay him $52 million, so he's locked down. The Jazz give up on the Taylor Hendricks experience. Kyle Anderson, Walter Clayton, Gorgeous Georges. Yeah, we hardly knew you in round number 2.
Yep.
And then 3 future first-round picks. Now the Jazz, obviously the big one in this is Jaren Jackson, Jacques Londell back in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a lot of BYU fans are familiar with him. But let's talk about the Jaren Jackson part of this. And give me Vince Williams, I know, and others are involved, but it's Jaren Jackson.
If the Jazz were going to make a serious push ever, they had to get better defensively. Full stop. That had to be where it started. The Jazz are a good offensive team. Will Hardy has proven to be a very good offensive coach. He's had good offenses with bad offensive players or mediocre offensive players, and he's found a way to make that side of the ball work. But they have been really, really bad defensively for the entire Will Hardy experience. And is that a Will Hardy problem? They really haven't had good defensive players on the team. And honestly, there's no magic, Scotty, to be getting better defensively. The same way you do it offensively. You go get players who are good on that side of the ball. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of the best in the business on the defensive end of the floor. He's a 2-time all-defensive team member. He's has won Defensive Player of the Year. He's a 2 times blocks champion. He is a major, major difference maker on defense.
So talk short-term, long-term. How does this affect the Jazz short-term? How does it affect them long-term?
Short-term, I don't know how much we're going to see him the rest of this year.
Yeah.
You still want to hold on to this lottery pick. You're in pretty good position
Which,
to do it.
ironically enough, is tied to Memphis.
Is tied to Memphis, but Oklahoma City is where it goes.
Oklahoma City, sorry.
Yeah.
My bad, yeah.
It is tied to Memphis because Memphis is the next closest team to the Jazz in the standings. And if Memphis, who is now tanking, because they're going to sell off everything, were to jump the Jazz, it really does change the likelihood that the Jazz hold on to that pick. So you're right, it does impact Memphis quite a bit and the Jazz. But the Jazz are going to hold on to this pick. They're going to add this to the mix, and that will be the team. I mean, that will at least be that'll be the core. I mean, what this signals to me is a huge investment in Keontae George, a huge investment in Lauri Markkanen. Like, no question, those are the 2 main offensive faces, and your offensive faces are your stars, and Jaren Jackson Jr., who, by the way, is not coming in to be your 3rd star. Jaren Jackson is a great player. He's got more all-star appearances than Lauri and Keontae combined. And like you said, he's signed through 2030, which is just crazy in the NBA. That's a long-term contract, but it's great because he's 26 years old. You know, he matches the timeline. In fact, we were talking during the break. He bridges the timeline between the Jazz's young players and Lauri Markkanen, assuming the Jazz are holding on to Lauri Markkanen. I mean, I guess the weird thing is now, because of the picks that the Jazz included, which is the Suns' 2031 pick, the Lakers pick next year, which is top 4 protected, and a pick next year that could be the Jazz's or could be the Cavs or could be the Timberwolves. Truthfully, if the Jazz wanted to go out and do something crazy beyond this, you could include a Lauri Markkanen or a Walker Kessler, if not both. Like, if the Jazz wanted to get absolutely nuts, and I don't want to get too far away from the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, but you could go out and say, we're going to bring Giannis in. It's going to be Keontae, Giannis, and Jaren Jackson Jr., and you're going to trade Lowry and Walker to get them and all the rest of your future picks. Like, you've started to lay out the foundation for a real contender now by bringing in Jaren Jackson Jr., or you just run, like you said, with Lowry, Keontae, and Jaren, and you're in really good shape.
All right. If there's one player that's on the Jazz roster right now that's saying, uh-oh, it's got to be Walker Kessler, right?
Has to be. So here's the interesting thing about Jaren Jackson Jr. He's a true 4-5. He's a bit of a tweener. You remember who the Memphis Grizzlies drafted a year and a half ago? It was Zach Edey.
Yeah.
They thought they needed to have a center to play next to Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren's not a good rebounder. He does not rebound the ball. It's like 6 a game, which is just very low for a 4 and extraordinarily low for a 5. So what approach do the Jazz feel like they want to take? Because I believe, and I think the Jazz believe, that Lowry is best as a 4. He's a power forward. That's where you get the most advantages from him and his ability to move off the ball. Well, if Lowry's a 4 and you think that's where he's best, you probably want Jaren at the 5 as much as possible, but not exclusively. I don't think he can be a full-time 5. But if he's going to have to play some 5, how much are you willing to invest in Walker Kessler if you know Jaren's got to get 25 minutes a night at 5?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you're not willing to give Walker Kessler $35 million or $30 million. And if that's the question, now all these Indiana Pacers teams, these Washington Wizards type teams that have inquired about Walker, do you say, ooh, if you're going to pay him 30, we can't pay him 30 and play him 25 minutes a night. So we've got to seriously examine those trade offers. Maybe you recoup some of those draft picks that you just sent out in a trade for Walker, and it keeps your ability open to have some malleability with your team building. What
do you think the market is for Walker Kessler with the injuries, but obviously the talent that we've seen when he is healthy?
I do think it's always dangerous to go out and try and poach a restricted free agent. It's always dangerous to do. And the Indiana Pacers have been burned by it. They tried to sign DeAndre Ayton and weren't able to get him away from the Phoenix Suns. And, the Jazz have had their own problems trying to poach restricted free agents historically, Corey Maggette and Jason Terry. So it does scare teams off. But now that the Jazz have a lot of roster money committed to Lowry Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr., and knowing that Keontae is going to get paid, if not this summer, next summer, some teams probably say we could put the Jazz in a difficult spot by giving Walker a big deal that maybe they have to pass on responsibly. To maintain responsible bookkeeping, they have to pass on Walker. And if the Jazz feel like they're going to be cornered in that spot, maybe they are aggressive before the trade deadline to move him. So the market, it could be 25 because teams are so scared that the Jazz are going to match it. Whatever, offers just don't come in. Or the teams could say, ooh, we think we can put the Jazz between a rock and a hard place with this type of trade, and so we're going to really go for it. Or with this type of offers, we're going to go for it.
Is there any chance that we look back 2-3 years and say, oh, boy, we just needed to give Taylor Hendricks a little bit more time? Or
no,
he is what he is?
Because the best of Taylor Hendricks is Jaren Jackson Jr.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's a great point. Yeah.
That's the gamble the Jazz were more than willing to take here. And I do think the injury played a part in it. I do think the fact that Taylor's been a little slow to grasp some of the things that he's been asked to do since he come back have probably played a part in it. And again, the other part of it is just like, Scotty, you just don't get 26-year-old two-time All-Stars who are under contract for 5 more seasons come available very often. I mean, that's why everyone wanted Lowry Markkanen, right? He was going to be signed to a long-term contract, and you were going to control his rights for the future. 5 years of a player is an eternity in the NBA. At a high number, $50 million is not cheap. You're paying him All-Star prices. You're not getting a discount on Jaren Jackson Jr.'s services, but the fact that you're not running into a contract negotiation with him in 18 months is such a major advantage for a team. So I just think ultimately you said, yeah, you're going to have to give up, you're going to have to break some eggs if you want to make an omelet, but this is a heck of an omelet for the Utah Jazz.
Around the landscape of the NBA, are people looking at this and saying Memphis is going rebuild and maybe there's some fire that heats up on Ja?
Absolutely. Yeah, they have to trade Ja. In fact, I wouldn't imagine he ends up in Houston or Minnesota in the next 48 hours. They're going to get rid of their guards now. They might as well start all the way over. Like I said, they're just behind the Jazz in the tanking race. Now, just behind, it's 5 games. It's a huge gap, actually, with 35 games left to play. They're not going to be able to catch the Jazz, I don't think, because I don't think, again, the Jazz are going to run Jaren Jackson Jr. out there to play a whole lot to risk losing this lottery pick. But, yeah, they want to improve their draft pick as much as possible, and they're hoping that they can get their replacement for Ja and Jaren in this year's draft.
And that's going to be so the Jazz hold on to the pick. their pick this year, so let's say hypothetically they're top 5, top 4 in this upcoming NBA draft. You've got, and let's say for the short run, Lauri Markkanen's still on the team, Walker Kessler is not. And then you throw Jaren Jackson Jr. into the mix as well. Based on this year's NBA draft and what could be available 1 through 5, this team, and then with Lauri Markkanen that you can move pretty quickly, this team can rebuild really fast.
No, this thing could always get going really quickly, and the Jazz have kept their powder dry. They drafted players, but they've kept their powder dry. And, you bring in a play. I mean, we haven't even talked about Ace Bailey and the fact that, you look now across the line for the Utah Jazz, and their starting lineup is going to be Keontae George, Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., and insert center here, unless Jaren Jackson moves up to the 5, and then you're finding a 3. A.J. DeBonsa might look pretty good there if that ends up being your guy. Or Darren Peterson at the 2, and then you move Ace Bailey to the 3. But, you're massive. You've got a massive lineup. And then, yes, if you feel like you need to add something this summer, you've kept your powder dry. You can still pull the trigger on a big trade. And it was something that always stuck out to me, talking about Justin Zanuck, is when the Jazz made these trades in 2022, I was on a Zoom call because we were still kind of doing some of the Zoom call stuff. And Justin said to the media, he said, we don't have enough assets to make 1 superstar move. We have enough to make 2.
Yeah.
And that's still true. You just made 1. You just spent a lot of your cash, C-A-C-H-E, your cash of assets to get a star. You still have enough to get another one if you want to. And we'll see what happens with this pick. If this pick ends up top 3 or 4, you probably hold on to it and you make the pick. If it's 5, 6, 7, you have a very valuable trade piece for other teams that are saying, hey, we've got a star we're willing to give you because we want to start our rebuild the same way the Memphis Grizzlies just did.
When you so these next 48 hours, how active do you think the phones are ringing for the Utah Jazz?
A lot. This, again, I think this starts the process. Now, that doesn't mean that there are more coming. But I do think the Jazz recognize that they have begun the process of radically exiting this rebuild. Now, not so radical that they're going to be out of it again before April 13th when the season ends. That's a month and a half away or 2.5 months away. They're not going to go nuts trying to lose their pick. But that this summer, the Jazz are going to be serious about improving this team. And by just adding Jaren Jackson Jr., I don't think you're competing for a title by itself.
No.
But I do think you've put yourself closer to that situation where if you want to start competing, you can, and why would you wait now? I mean, Lauri Markkanen's 28, Jaren Jackson Jr. is 26, Keontae George is good enough to start helping you win. What are you waiting for at this point? Like, you don't sit back another summer and just say, like, let's see how it goes. I honestly think there's probably more moves to come, whether that's, in the next 48 hours, which could be aggressive, or could be over the summer, and you wait and see what happens with your draft pick.
Regardless of the team, do you anticipate Giannis is moved at trade deadline? I'm going to go no.
Yeah, I think no. I still think no.
Okay.
I've said no. I just think you wait until teams get really desperate because they had a bad offseason, and you let this dust settle a little bit more.
That would be my thought. Well, and then you got the contract issue with him too, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't want a 1-year rental on Giannis.
Yeah, he has to accept an extension by October.
Yeah.
If he's going to re-sign. So, yeah, if you trade now, you better have his real approval that he wants to be on your team long term. You may have more time to sell him on it in the summer. Of saying, hey, not only are we acquiring you now, but we've got these other moves in the aggregate that are going to support this being your team and built around you to have success going forward.
So, all right, so let's, again, just look at the roster as is, and let's take Walker Kessler off of that. But go to that line that you mentioned with Keontae George, Jaren Jackson, Ace Bailey, who am I spacing here? Lauri Markkanen, and again, center to be named later.
Yeah.
Yusuf,
it could
whatever.
just be Walker, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Is that a playoff team?
Next year, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Next year, yeah.
Yeah, Lowry's going to be an all-star next year, and Jaren might be too. I mean, you've got...
I mean, Lowry's averaging more than he did his all-star year.
Look, it's kind of out of vogue, and this is where this does get interesting. It's not the modern way teams are building. Teams are valuing depth right now over kind of top-heavy rosters. And we'll see, can some of these young players on the Jazz, Cody Williams, who's had a nice season, Bryce Sensabaugh, who is very up and down, but, do some, and then whoever they add this year in the draft, plus Ace Bailey, do they fill out your roster 5, 6, 7, 8, and then whatever veterans you can get? You kind of have some depth there. But the Jazz have a true big three. I mean, this is going to be as good a big three as the Jazz have ever had. Now don't get me wrong, Karl and John were better. But I think there's a real argument that the Jazz's third best player here in this mix, whether it ends up being Keontae or it ends up being Lowry or it ends up being Jaren, is a better player than Jeff Hornacek was and is better than the third player that the Jazz had next to Boozer or Darren Williams, whether that was Mehmet Okur or whoever, or Bojan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley. The third guys, the last time the Jazz have had two either Hall of Famers or high-level All-Stars, this is a really good top three for the Utah Jazz.
I was bummed out. I called that game on Sunday. Well, yesterday. I was in Toronto this time yesterday. And I was bummed I didn't have a chance to call some Keontae George. And I totally understand the theory. That kid is elevated to an entirely different level that I don't know if a lot of us thought would be possible. And you're of the belief that it's sustainable too.
My thought is he's not close to his finish. I think he's just ascending. And I don't think this is like, oh, well, he's arrived now. This is the guy.
Yeah.
You look around the NBA and players who mimic or are similar to what Keontae George is doing, they get up to 30 points a game quickly. That's where Donovan Mitchell got to. It's where Tyrese Maxey is right now. I think that's in the cards for Keontae. I think he's going to get to 28, 29, 30 points per game next season or the year after. I think the game is so easy for him, the offensive side specifically, and the league really rewards players like him who know how to milk fouls, get to the foul line a lot, become good shooters all over the floor, which he's done so far this season. I think his ceiling is not particularly close to where he is right now. And that doesn't mean he's going to get to become, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Luke. I don't think he's going to become that quality of player, but I don't think that this is the final version of Keontae. He's going to get better. And again, when I said earlier in the segment that this was a big investment in Keontae and Lowry, I think it's because you're seeing the Jazz believe Keontae's got another gear to his game.
That's Ben Anderson, folks. Appreciate you hanging out, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's interesting, too, because when you look at Keontae, all right, so all the picks that the Jazz have had and all the youth that they've added to the roster, you hope that one would hit. And the fact that one has in Keontae, Taylor Hendricks, no, Cody Williams might be a good player. But if you got one all-star out of that, it was all worth it.
It was worth it. Yeah, and that was the thought. And look, I talked to people in the offseason for the Jazz last offseason, and they said we are waiting for someone to break out to match with Lowry. And it happened. And now they've got the third star to run with him.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep,
You're the best, man. Appreciate it. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
As Hans Olsen has moved on to the corporate world, we're looking for the next great Utah sports radio talent.
There's something for everyone.
While we do that, you get stuck with this guy.
Hey, everybody, here's our star.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen. Dang it. I did it. I knew I was going to. Look, we love Hans.
First. Okay, second
segment. I almost did it the first one, too, though.
Luckily, you had Ben Anderson looking across the way.
Staring at Ben. Look, it's going to happen a lot. And
you're listening to the Aggie Network.
Yeah. All right. You know what? Let's get some business out of the way. I'm going to bribe you to keep listening, and we bribe you on this station, so let's give away some Jazz tickets.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and your chance to win tickets is right now.
Call this number now.
Be caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. And you'll be on your way to Delta Center to see the Utah Jazz.
He fires the three. He hits. Oh, don't do me like that.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, caller number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. You're going to win a pair of tickets. See the Jazz and the Sacramento Kings coming up on Wednesday, February 11th at Delta Center at 7 o'clock. All right, I was not on the show yesterday with that trip to Toronto to call the Jazz game, which was a blast and loved every second of it. People are asking me what Toronto was like. I spent a grand total of 16 hours in Toronto.
Good food? How was the food?
You know what? The protein bar I bought at the airport, and although they did have some Indian food. I had a little butter chicken going to the from the arena back to the hotel, but overall solid. So I wasn't on the air yesterday, and I know we kind of patchwork things, and a lot of you out there are wondering what the future of the show looks like, and that's totally understandable. I'm going to accidentally say Hans Olsen a lot. Hans is our guy. And before, look, I'll see on Twitter, and I'll see people pop up here and there about why Hans decided to leave. And I've been in radio a long time, especially here in Salt Lake City. I've been in radio over 30 years in some way, shape, or form, here in Salt Lake for 20 years. So I've been around a bunch of different management. I've been around a bunch of different show breaks up, rebuilds, things like that. And for some reason, some of the places I've worked before, they want to hide everything. They're all about, don't say anything. Let's keep it quiet. Or, you know what? This is the message we want to give out. This is what we want to say. This is how we want to portray things to the public. This is why I love Bonneville. I love working for KSL because in my conversations with Nate Dowdle, who's been awesome through all of this, David Pierce, Ruth Todd, there's been Lloyd, although I consider Lloyd and I kind of on the front lines on this, even though Lloyd's still technically my boss, it feels like we're partners in trying to put together a show that you want. And in all of our conversations, their question was, and their response was, who do you want? But also, how much time do you need? Because Hans is not an easy guy to replace. And so I'm going to be completely transparent. I'm going to be completely out in the open and tell you everything that's going on. You want to know? I'll tell you. We got nothing to hide here. There was no issues whatsoever between me and Hans, Lloyd, well, maybe a little bit between Lloyd and Hans. I'm joking. But there was never any issues. Hans, and this is why I loved working with Hans, that man is single-minded and he is very goal-oriented. There is something he wants, he will find a way to get it. And this is ultimately what Hans wants. He wants to be sitting on a beach with his beautiful wife in warm weather and enjoying life. Not to say he didn't like doing the show, but that's really his happy place. And he had a goal of wanting to get there as quickly as he possibly could. And he was given a golden opportunity, an incredible opportunity to accelerate that process to where he could get on that beach with his wife and enjoy life. And he's able to reach his goals a little quicker going that route than he would here. That's bottom line. It's not as if we're grossly underpaid here. They take really good care of us, but that was a golden opportunity that, frankly, if the shoe was on the other foot, I might do the same. So no animosity whatsoever, no bridges burnt. Hans will always be my guy. If the man ever needs a kidney, I'm there. If he needs a body buried in the West Desert, I'm there. Like, I will do anything for that man, and I think the feeling is mutual. He'll be a brother for life. Love him. Absolutely love him. It's been an incredible 12 years, an absolute honor and a privilege to be on the air with that guy. With that said, though, we've been on the air every day for 12 years, sometime in the range of 15, during COVID, 20 hours a week. That's a man that I would talk to some weeks more than I would my wife. And we would be sitting next to neck, face to face to each other and talking not just about sports, but talking about our lives, what we're going through, the wins, the struggles, the good times, bad times. We shared all of that. And so now that he's not here, now I don't know what a divorce feels like. Hopefully, knock on whatever this is, hopefully I never have to go through a divorce. But it feels like I'm going through a work divorce. And it's not easy. And I want to use this term kindly because I know people are actually grieving, but kind of grieving, It's a gut punch. And it's been brewing for a bit. Like, it didn't surprise us that he decided to go this route. We kind of felt like it was heading that direction for a bit. But still, you come to expect great radio every day from 12 to 3. Great sports content, right? You want a couple of guys that can sit and take you away from all the burdens in your life, have a good laugh, talk some sports, have some fun. And I just can't replicate, we here cannot replicate that same kind of chemistry and that same kind of vibe to a show overnight. I would love nothing more than to hop on the air today and say, this is our co-host, this is our three-man show with Lloyd, this is what we're doing, we're going right now, go. But we can't. So long answer to a very simple question. What's your long-term plans for the show? I don't know. I really don't know right now. But that's not to say we don't have a plan and some long-term goals in place. We will have somebody in place for you. We were going to find the next sports radio Utah superstar. We're going to find him. We will leave no stone unturned. We will get creative. We'll think outside the box. This guy might be in our backyard, or he may be across the country. I don't know. But it is going to be an individual that's going to mesh with the show, that isn't going to rock the boat in terms of what we've built here. Because one thing in watching the response to Hans walking away from the show is hearing about what this show has meant to a lot of you. For so many years, it just felt like me, Lloyd, and Hans were just talking to each other. And now that Hans is gone, I know that this show meant a lot to a lot of people out there. That we got you, and our laughs and our stupid things we talk about would make you smile and make you think about or make you forget about some of the horrible things that you've had to go through or some of the issues you've had to go through. And that means a lot. And that means there's a certain responsibility that I feel, that Lloyd feels, in delivering a show that has that same kind of vibe, that doesn't take itself too seriously, that doesn't create arguments just for the sake of arguing, that is genuine, authentic, fun, and informative. And that's what we want to deliver for you. And if it takes some time to find it, we're going to do that. Now, this isn't, I know the name of the show, Scotty G and Friends. Okay, it's temporary, all right? This isn't, I think it sounds a little narcissistic. Lloyd was the first to say, I think this is a good idea. I was against it. And then my wife, who's much smarter than all of us, said, no, that's a good way to go. Temporary, just show that, hey, you're still here, and we're going to bring in a bunch of people. We've made a lot of friends and associates throughout the show. So it's not going to be me just spouting off for 3 hours every day. We're going to bring in a ton of people. And it's not necessarily an audition, but it is a way for us to find out who we mesh with, what we're looking for, and what we want the show to look like. Lloyd and I are also looking at this as an opportunity to expand, to be a little bit more creative, do some things we've never done before, just because we were in such a great rhythm with Hans that we didn't really push the envelope too much because we knew what we were doing was working. Well, now this gives us a chance to take a step back and say, okay, what else is out there? What else can we do to provide an entertaining show for you? So my goal is this. Certainly, we will have somebody in place before the start of the college football season. My drop dead date is the Big 12 Media Day. We will have somebody in place by then. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's July. That's several months from now. I know. That means we're going to take our time. And if we find somebody that clicks in the next 2 or 3 weeks, then boom, we'll go and off to the races. If it takes us several months, it'll take several months. But I owe it to you, our listeners, and our advertisers and our partners who have been so great through all of this. I owe it to all of you that we provide the best quality show for you. And frankly, I owe it to myself and Lloyd because, hey, you can turn the radio off anytime you want. We're the ones that are going to have to deal with this guy every day. So we want to make sure we get the right hire that meshes with us. And we want to make sure that we have a show that we like, that you like, that our partners like, and that we can all get back on the same page. And when it's time to really start training camp and fall camp, that we have got the best show for you. Does that mean it's going to be a former player? Might be. Does it mean it's going to be a former coach? Could be. Does it mean it's going to be football-centric? I would like to think so, but it's up in the air. The person's just going to have to be really well-informed on everything because Hans set the bar so high there. That dude could talk football better than anybody else, but more importantly, he could explain football better than anybody else I've ever been around. And I learned a ton just being around him. And I know you, the listener, learned a ton. So it's going to have that same vibe of somebody that really knows their stuff, but can explain it in such a way that can be open, vulnerable, honest, insightful, funny, and is willing to let you, the listener, into their lives. Because we're an open book. That's one thing that it is non-negotiable on this show. We are an open book. We will be transparent. We will tell you everything that's going on. And frankly, I want to hear from you. If there's somebody that we bring in that does a run of shows and you like, let me know about it. Hey, you've got skin in this game too. So if there's something that you want to hear, something that you like, even something you didn't like, let me know. You can find me on Twitter anytime. I respond to as many people as I can. At Scotty G Zone. It's right there for you, at Lloyd Cole Zone. You can reach us at any time. And the good, the bad, whatever the case is, let us know. If there's something you like, you want more of, hey, we want to build this show to make sure that you're happy with the direction we're going. Hans, I'm going to miss my guy. Lloyd's going to miss our guy. I'm brokenhearted. I won't lie. It sucks. It stinks. And it's going to take some time for me to get over this. Full disclosure. That's my dude. And I love him. I support him. I'll always have his back. And I'm so happy that he gets a chance to go forward in pursuing his life goals. It wasn't easy on him. It wasn't easy on us. It's tough. It's really tough. But that doesn't change the fact that we still have a job to do. So we'll take our time. We'll get it right. And I guarantee you we will deliver a show that you'll enjoy, that you'll appreciate, and we can get back to doing what we love, talking sports, having laughs, and having a good time. Bottom line. So there you go. Update on the show. Short answer, I don't know. I really don't know. But that doesn't mean we're going to be standing pat and not doing anything. We are putting in our work, our due diligence to make sure that we deliver a really high-quality sports content show. I mean, frankly, Hans mentioned, sports radio as a singular entity really isn't getting it done. I know so many of you listen to us at midnight when you're at the gym or in the morning, the following morning. And by the way, morning after podcast, it will continue. It's not dead. What it's going to look like, I don't know. And frankly, it might be a morning after podcast that continues throughout the entire year, not just the football season. So what you may be missing in quality with Hans, I'm going to give you in quantity. But Lloyd, this is open forum. You got anything you want to add?
You're right. It's like a marriage. We've talked about it. The three of us have worked together for so long that we knew what the other one was thinking before the other one. We just knew in the direction things were going. We were so bonded with the three of us and our listeners. It's going to be hard to replicate. But we're going to put the best. You've said it best. We are going to put the best show out there. We are going to do our best to give you the best product. And we're going to. You're right. We're going to try a bunch of things and see what feels right.
Yeah.
I think you'll when you're sitting there talking to somebody, it usually, maybe it takes a little bit, but usually you have a pretty good idea when it's like, well, that feels good. Like the conversation's good, and we want to make sure that that it has that same type of vibe that the listener, where it's like we always wanted to have that, where it's like we're sitting at the local sports bar, just having a conversation, and we want you there with us.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what we want. We want you to be part of that conversation and feel like you're part of the show, whether it's on social. Our good friend Chewbacca, who sends in his AI stuff, and all that. We like it to be a part. We want all of you to be a part of the show and feel like you're a part of the show.
Yeah. You got skin in this game. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
And we want to make sure it's, the most informed, the best, the most interactive show.
The most interactive show on sports radio.
But you're right. It's gonna take a sec. We got to fill it out. We got to see what's. I've had so many people text me and say, "What are you gonna have a decision?" No, I'm not gonna have a decision next week.
No,
or probably the week after. It's gonna take a sec. And you've said it many times. It takes, to fill those big size shoes.
Takes a village.
It takes a village. It's going to take it. It's going to take a sec.
But we're going to find it.
I can promise you, as somebody that is one of the best evaluators of on-air talent in this market, I'm just telling you, you'll find it. Yeah. We'll find it.
We'll find it.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Lloyd and I, we joke around a lot, but I think we're very aligned in terms of what we know the show needs. And this is going to be, and by the way, again, I cannot thank Nate Dowdle, David Pierce enough for them saying, do what you got to do. Take your time, get it right. And this is a great job. Let's not look, this is a highly sought after job in terms of, it's the top of the pecking order in terms of ratings, in terms of salary, in terms of all the elements involved. This chair over there that is next to me, that whoever sits in that is walking into a really great situation. We just got to make sure whoever it is doesn't grind the gears and that we can keep this sports car humming along very, very nicely. And so there's going to be a lot of people who want this job and a lot of great quality candidates. I've talked to a lot of people out of market who really, really want to crack at this opportunity. And it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with what Hans was able to build here and the success that he was able to build for himself, his brand, and the opportunities that came from that. It's a great station. It's a great company to work for. It's a great sports town, and it's only going to get better. And we want to make sure that we have what you need every day from 12 to 3 or wherever you get your podcast, whatever the case might be. We're going to deliver that for you. I promise you that. All right. Take a break. Come back. Coming up next, what you may have missed straight ahead. And again, get back to the Jazz trade. Biggest story of the day. Jazz pulled the trigger on a trade. Enough of us yammering. Let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. It's up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're listening to Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Well, while we try to figure out who's going to fill those big shoes of Hans Olsen, we're bringing in everybody and anybody because we know that we got to get people who are way smarter than me to talk about the things that you care about, like the Jazz pulling off a big trade. Jaren Jackson Jr. on his way to Salt Lake City as the Jazz, according to multiple reports, have pulled the trigger on this trade. So let's bring in Kurt Helin, NBC Sports and ProBasketballTalk.com. All right, your initial thoughts from the 30,000 feet view on this. What are you thinking on this one, Kurt?
First off, Scotty, your pull must be very impressive. Your ability to get this trade done just before I
know,
on,
right?
You must, yeah. Just your pull with Danny Ainge is really impressive.
Well, it's like, look, it's the first day without Hans. I wasn't on the air yesterday, so I'm like, all right, I need something to talk about. Danny, I need you to help me out a little bit. And he's like, I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on it.
I like this trade a lot for Utah in that, look, you and I have talked about this. We've heard from the Jazz. They'd tell anybody who'd listen. This was the last year they kind of wanted to be bad, right? Like the tanking, you're only going to go for so long. The natives were restless. The ownership was restless. They wanted to start winning. This moves them along that route. Now you put together a front line of Jaren Jackson Jr. and Lauri Markkanen, and you can either have them play the 4 and the 3 and put Kessler or somebody at the 5 next year, or you can have just Lauri at the 4 and Jackson at the 5. And you have an athletic, impressive front line to go with Keontae George, with what Ace Bailey can develop into, with whatever you draft this year. And suddenly it starts to look pretty good. Suddenly you can start to see a path towards this team being both good next year and building into something that can really be a threat in the West.
If you're the Jazz, do you shelve Jaren to make sure that you hold on to that pick and don't have to kick it over to Oklahoma City?
Yeah. I'm does he have a back problem?
I think if he doesn't, one will be created very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I would be surprised if that's not the case. And whatever the under over on number of games he's going to play with the Jazz this season is, I'll probably try to bet the under. But yes, at the end of the day, you still want to be high in this draft. You still want to get one more player to go next to Ace Bailey. You don't want to start winning too much now. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, though, just with the league, because Jackson, like Lauri, qualifies under the player participation rules. They have to legitimately be out, so you're going to have to come up with something good.
So 26 years old, under contract through 2030. To me, that's just a win-win, especially when you're dealing with, the volatile issue of keeping guys in Utah. This seems like you knocked it out of the park.
Yes, and you pick up a former defensive player of the year. A guy who can score. Frankly, if I'm remembering right, he did not make an all-star game. He was not an all-star this year.
No.
But he was on my list when I had put together who the coaches should choose, because I know better, but who the coaches should pick. Jaren Jackson Jr. was on my list. I think he's been an all-star level player this year on a team that's been up and down, but they traded Desmond Bane. If you remember, by the way, 2022, this team lost to the Warriors in 6 games in the conference finals, that Grizzlies team. And we all thought they were a team on the rise, right? Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks was on that team. They defended like mad, and boy, that whole thing came apart and got ugly. And they've set themselves up, frankly, good for a rebuild. They've got 12 picks in the next 7 years. They're in a good position for retooling this thing. but you benefit from that with one of the better centers in the league.
So, not an elite rebounder.
No.
Does that lead Utah to maybe try to find a way to keep Walker Kessler, or do you think that's the next domino that falls?
No, I think I mean, I'm not sure you can trade him for right now just because he hasn't been able to. I mean, there's interest in him, but because of the injuries, it'd be kind of lowball. If you can get him back on a reasonable contract next year and either play him at the 5 or even have him come off the bench, I kind of like that fit, and he fits the timeline. So personally, I'd be trying to keep him, but it kind of depends on what the offers are for him. If it's good enough, you got to consider it.
Does this mean, in a weird way, because the Jazz still have a lot of ammunition, could they be in play for Giannis when you look at, Lauri Markkanen and maybe some other contracts to try to pull that off?
Interesting. You probably could. You run into this challenge. Giannis can be a free agent in the summer of 2027. And so, you've got to be, if you can get him to say, yeah, I want to compete. I want to be there. This is a team I think I can win with. I'll re-sign. Then yes, but you can't go all in unless you know you're going to be able to get him. And that might be a challenge because frankly, if I were him, I'd want to stay in the East.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But, also, too, you're right. Nobody's going to want to touch a one-year rental on him without any kind of assurances.
No, and the price is going to be a whole bunch of first round. I mean, we're talking 3, 4, 5 first round picks plus a good blue chip young player. Plus, I mean, it's going to be a high price wherever he goes. I'm not sure if Jonathan Kuminga is a blue chip player anymore, but the point being, you're going to have to give up a lot to get him, whether whoever ends up making that trade. And I'm like I said, unless you can get some sort of assurance, I'm just not. It's like you got to think about it just because he's a top 5 player in the world when healthy. But can you get him to stay?
I think the thing I'm taking away the most out of this, Kurt, is that if you're a Jazz fan and you've been mired in bad basketball for 3.5 years, that this is your light at the end of the tunnel. It's not the light at the end of the tunnel, but it can be part of a growing opportunity to get this team back to respectability.
This team should be respectable next year. I mean, you're already kind of on the way, right? Again, Keontae George played at an all-star level. He wasn't going to – in the deep West where, heck, Kawhi Leonard didn't make the team in his own building. I don't know how he was going to make it this year. So – but he's been playing at that kind of level. And if you're going to get George in there and you're going to get everything's coming up, there was already reason for hope. And now you can suddenly put this together and go, and if it really is a Kessler, Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ace Bailey, George starting 5, that's absolutely going to be worth buying tickets for.
Is that a playoff team next year? Without not knowing what the rest of the roster looks like.
Yeah, they're in the mix for it. Again, the West is kind of brutal at the top, and OKC is going to be OKC for a few years. Denver's not going anywhere. That Jokic guy is still pretty good.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
San Antonio and Houston are there. But if you're talking somewhere between 5 and 8 getting through in the playoff, you might have to go through the play-in the first year. But depending on all these factors we can't really see right now, yeah, absolutely. I could see them in the playoffs next year.
So the Jazz, I think Will Hardy is an incredible offensive coach. But the Jazz under Will Hardy have never been good defensively. And frankly, look, have they had good defensive players? No. But I'm wondering, is it easier to develop a offensive player when they get into the NBA or a defensive player? Or do you just, you realize I need to just go out and get defensive players, which the Jazz did?
I think most players, it's easier to teach them offense. They're more willing, everybody's more willing because you can see it on the stat page. You can see all this stuff. And, hey, you made the right read on this switch and made this guy pass the ball out of the corner to a tougher shot. That doesn't show up on the stat sheet, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little tougher to sometimes get guys to buy into that. But and if Hardy wants, there's no shortage of defensive gurus / defensive coordinator type coaches out there. You can go get your Jeff Van Gundy with what he did for the Clippers last year. You can go get somebody to play that role and coach them. But I think when you start to look at the talent and how Jaren Jackson likes to play, he does like to be a roamer and a shot blocker. You're going to have to have somebody at the 5, probably next to him at points, allowing him to do that, whether it's Kessler or Nurkic or someone else.
Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com, as the Jazz pull the trigger on the trade. Walter Clayton and the Taylor Hendricks experience is unfortunately come to an end. And I know there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas, but the Jazz took a lot of swings in the draft. I don't know what Cody Williams is eventually going to look like. Obviously, the Taylor Hendricks thing is behind us. But if you swing as many times as the Jazz did and you come away with one potential all-star in Keontae George, is that worth it?
That's how it works. Like you look, well, going back to the much maligned 76ers and the process and all that, right?
Yeah.
They got Joel Embiid. Now, it hasn't panned out for them long term, or at least unless something shocking happens this year. They looked great against a stunned Clippers team last night.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah.
But you're going to miss on stuff. You're going to, in their case, the easy answer is, hey, man, Ben Simmons looked really good. And then suddenly Ben Simmons wasn't good. Like, you're going to just miss on some of these guys. It's going to happen this year where we think there's these 3 studs at the top of the draft. And I don't think any of them are going to be bad, but one of them is going to turn out to be good.
There's going to be
right?
there's going to be a Darko in there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, hopefully not that, but yeah, but there is going to be a guy who isn't the franchise cornerstone the team was thinking about, and then somewhere down the line, somebody's going to get drafted at 8 or 10, who is that guy, who can develop into that guy, and so you do the best scouting you can, you take as many swings, many bites at the apple as you can, and you hope your odds are good enough, and most importantly, and what I think Utah does well, is player development. You've got to develop these guys. You can't just throw them out there and let them go. It's how Oklahoma City is where Oklahoma City is. It's how San Antonio was and it is now, but like was for so long. And they'd go find these guys at the end of draft, and every year we'd be like, where did they find this guy? In today's NBA, you're going to need to do that.
When you look at what Memphis is doing now with Jaren Jackson gone, does that feel like they're embracing the rebuild and Ja could be gone in the next 48 hours?
Yes. I still think it's more likely in the summer just because there isn't a market for him right now. And I think what you need to do is, and I think this is a little true with Giannis too, frankly, you need to get to the summer when there's a little more desperation.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily the pressure of desperation, but somebody's going to flame out, right? Somebody's going to burn out in the playoffs earlier than they thought. Something else is going to happen, and you're going to have this very different set of teams. Like suddenly, like, hey, man, maybe we need to go all in. There will be somebody who will say, let's take a flyer. Let's go get Ja Morant, because if he can get back to being like he's shown flashes this year of being that guy. If you think you could keep him healthy. And on the court, and matured a little bit, maybe you get something, maybe not the high flying guy of a few years ago, but if you get a good player, there's somebody's going to take that chance. And I just think it's more likely to happen. I can tell you this, I already talked to somebody, they're calling teams, they're still pushing, but I think that's going to be an off season thing.
With the news that came out yesterday, could this trade deadline get a little bit more exciting than potentially we thought it was going to be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did. Nobody saw this one coming. I mean, what I had heard was everybody calling about Ja asked about Jaren Jackson Jr., and we're told, no, we're not trading him. Until somebody came through with an offer with those 3 picks that was too good to turn down, right?
Yeah.
And the Harden thing was a bit of a surprise. There's going to be more. We keep looking at Giannis and Ja and Anthony Davis, but there probably is another 1 or 2 out there where we just didn't see the pivot coming.
If you're Cleveland, do you want that heart? I mean, on the outside looking in, is that good for Cleveland?
I don't love it.
I don't either.
I was just doing the stats this morning. I put it up on we've got a tracker up at NBC Sports where if you want to know what's going on in trades, we've got all the latest info and rumors. But Harden, I was looking this up. Harden holds the ball for 6 seconds every time he touches it on average, the longest of any player in the league. This is a team that likes to run in Cleveland, that does believe in ball movement. And now you're just taking the ball away from Donovan Mitchell, who has played brilliantly this year.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see a natural long-term fit. And by the way, the reason this is happening with Harden is he wants to get paid. He wants only $13 million of his contract next season is guaranteed. He wants to be able to pick that up and get all $42 million. And he wants some sort of extension beyond that. When I was talking about some team being desperate, maybe it's Cleveland, but that's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money for a 36-year-old guy with an injury history who may not have been the player taking the best care of his body over the years.
Well, you know what? Same, but I'm just talking on the radio. I'm not playing heavy NBA minutes, so for sure.
But you're making $42 million this year, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, and now more because I'm going to absorb Hans' salary, so that puts me at an even 100. So I'm golden. Hey, when you overall, I was in. By the way, I took a red eye. I was calling a Utah State game on Saturday morning. They were playing San Diego State. I got a text about our good friend Craig Bolerjack, who lost his voice. And so they're like, can you catch a red eye to Toronto? And so absolutely. So David Locke flipped over to TV. I did radio for that Jazz Raptors game and then had a 6 a.m. flight out the next morning. So I spent a grand total of 16 hours in Toronto. Beautiful city for those 16 hours. First time I'd been there. Still got my Tim Horton fix. So, you know, I'm heavily sugared up for that. But also, Toronto's an interesting team. The turnaround that they've done there, and I know nobody out here really cares about Toronto, but being there up close and in person, I like their style. I like the way they play. They're a really fun team. Now they're going to probably become my Eastern Conference guilty pleasure in watching that team go forward because I really like the way they've addressed how they've rebuilt that team on the fly.
They've got a lot of guys who like to get to the lane. They've got a lot of athletes. They like to play fast. What's fun is they play that pressure defense, right? Yeah. They are trying to force turnovers and get you out of your rhythm and into their rhythm of playing up tempo and in pace. And then they get in the half court. They've got Brandon Ingram, who's, for all his flaws, has always been a bucket. And the guy just can go get you points. And yeah, they're a sneaky fun team. And one of those teams where Giannis gets mentioned, and I don't think he'd want to re-sign there, but I think you put him next to Scotty Barnes and some of those guys in that system, it'd be pretty entertaining. They have been one of my sneaky league pass favorites for a while. They're fun. And by the way, you're not wrong. Toronto is one of my favorite cities, just less so in February.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. It was cold. I never in a million years did I think I need to go back to Utah to warm up, but Toronto made me think that. And but yeah, it was a really fun experience. And look, calling an NBA game, that's a high, unlike really anything else. And so big thanks to the Jazz for letting me be a part of that. But it was a really interesting experience to watch in the second quarter. And I'm sure he knew. I'm sure his agent told him. But they announced that Scotty Barnes was a all-star during a timeout in the second quarter. And it was really cool to see his teammates get around him and how fired up they were. Were you surprised that Brandon Ingram did not get a spot?
He was on the bubble. It's a little tough to give Toronto two, probably.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys who was snubbed. And if Adam Silver follows his old system of how he picks a replacement, they're going to have to pick a replacement for Giannis, who's out with the calf injury and not playing, although he's coaching the celebrities or something. In Silver's old system, Ingram would be the guy. He would be the next highest player on the fan vote. But with the different format this year, USA versus the world, I don't know that he follows that format. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if somehow Kawhi were on there simply because it's in their building, man.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so overall, just to reset, you're giving the Jazz an A on this one, and it may be a sign that the rebuild might have an end date to it.
It does. I after I get off of this conversation, which can last as long as you would like, I have to start a winners and losers column, and among the winners are the Jazz for me. I think they are clear winners in this. I think Memphis wins because they've kind of picked a direction and rebuilding.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Knicks fans are now very eager for you guys to make sure you play all of those guys, all the minutes you can.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Hey, we appreciate your time, Kurt. Thanks for hopping on. Great insight as always. And again, that trade tracker at NBCSports.com, correct?
Yeah, there's the whole group of us just putting stuff up as fast as it comes up, as much as we can keep up. So,
all right, love it.
It's going to be a fun 48 hours, man.
Let's do it. There he is, Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com, right here on The Zone.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, welcome back. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's give away some Jazz tickets right here on a Jazz Ticket Tuesday.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and your chance to win tickets is right now.
Call this number now.
Call this number now.
Be caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. And you'll be on your way to Delta Center to see the Utah Jazz.
He fires the three. Hey, Hans, don't do me like that.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, you know the drill. Caller number 12, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. You win a pair of tickets to see the Jazz and the Kings coming up on Wednesday, February 11th at Delta Center at 7 o'clock. All right, this segment brought to you in part by RGS Exteriors and Construction, obsessed with quality results. We'll be hanging out with Tim a little bit later on in the week. Fired up, as always, to talk some shop with him at RGS. All right, so the trade, and this is certainly one that I think that took a lot of people by surprise. And the thing that you obviously should come away from this is that the Jazz have now put an end date on the rebuilding process. And this is a trade you make when you're ready to say sayonara to bad basketball. I don't know. Now, again, that will start at the beginning of next year. The Jazz, if anything, now need to be fully committed to the tank for the remainder of the season to ensure that they have that first-round pick and that it does not convey to Oklahoma City. That is a very valuable asset that the Jazz have and will look forward to increasing the odds of being in that sweepstakes. And we saw over the weekend guys showcasing their abilities at a really high level and why that pick's going to be so important. There is a chance 1 through 5 in this upcoming draft to find a difference maker, like a franchise-altering player, not immediately, but certainly down the line, a guy that can be a perennial all-star. Whether it's A.J. DeBonsa, you can go down the list. Obviously, BYU fans and everybody here in Utah is familiar with his game, but that's the kind of player that you're hoping to snag and add to the likes of Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Keontae George, Walker Kessler. You throw him into that starting lineup with those 5, I believe that's a playoff team next year. Now, here's the other question. Is Walker Kessler part of this team next year? I believe Walker Kessler will still be a part of this team past the trade deadline. I don't get if there's a lot, and it's really easy to see this trade and immediately think one-off. I don't think that's the case. Or you think that there's multiple trades coming, that this isn't a one-off. I actually think that if there are more trades to come, just looking on the outside, looking in, I think it might be some minor trades here and there, but nothing monumental. I don't think that there's going to be any groundbreaking, anything of this magnitude type of trade. So if you're thinking, okay, this is step 1 of a 3-step process that nabs the Jazz Giannis at the trade deadline, I think you need to back away from that a little bit. This is going to be a very quiet remainder of trade deadline for the Utah Jazz. Now, something could come out of nowhere and wow them and they jump all in. But as of it stands right now, you might see a few minor tweaks here and there and, something for a second-round pick or some depth or just acquiring a couple assets. But don't think you're going to see a big Lauri Markkanen move. Don't think you're going to see a big Walker Kessler move coming up here in the next 48 hours. Now, that's not to say that something won't happen in the offseason around the NBA draft. That certainly could be the case, but I don't think you're going to see anything overly crazy going up here in the next 48 hours. What I do believe is that you're going to see this Jazz team really take a look at what's going on in the offseason. They'll take their time when teams get a little desperate, and you get Walker Kessler, and you're going to have to figure out what to do with him financially. That's a really difficult piece to this puzzle, is what do you want to do with Walker Kessler long term? What kind of contract do you want to sign him up for? Because when you look at Jaren Jackson, not an elite rebounder, elite defensive player, sure. But if you can slot him at the 4 and have an elite shot blocker rebounder at the 5, that's great. And Walker Kessler fits that bill. But on the flip side, where do you really want to have Lauri Markkanen? Well, as Ben Anderson, I think, wisely said earlier in the show, he might be more suited at the 4, which means then you bring Jaren Jackson down to the 5. And then Ace Bailey becomes your 3, and who knows, maybe A.J. DeBonsa, we can dream here. So, honestly, there's a lot of shuffling that needs to be done for this Jazz team. But your priority number 1 right now, absolutely right now, is to make sure that you hold on to that first-round pick. You have to hold on to that thing. It is of vital importance. Because now you put yourself on the clock. Because you've told your fan base, look, we've waited to go all in. This isn't all in per se, but it is part of a big 3 that you can build. Like right now, you've got a great big 3 in Keontae George, who could only go another step up. He's not at his ceiling yet. Then you throw in Jaren Jackson, a 2-time All-Star at 26 years old, who's under contract through 2030. So not only do you have him under contract, he's young, and he's in the prime of his career, coming off 2 All-Stars. And then you throw in, Lauri Markkanen, Keontae George, Jaren Jackson. That's a big 3 that you can build around. Now, you can also look at it and say, okay, well, is Lauri, what's the stock for him? Could we throw him into a trade or Walker Kessler in a combination of the two of them and bring back another superstar? Because the Jazz don't just have room for one superstar with Jaren Jackson, who's going to be making an average of $51 million over the next 3 years, but you can also absorb another contract of that magnitude. So flexibility is key. What's going on? I know the Jazz gave up 3 first-round picks, but they do have their pick for this year's draft. You don't want to, even if you use that as trade bait, let's say the Jazz slide but still hold on to the pick. So it's somewhere, in the 6-7 range. Sorry, had to. So let's say it lands in that range and you don't feel comfortable that you're going to get that altering piece. Well, guess what? Somebody still feels like there's going to be value there. You can still move that pick later on. So priority number 1 for the Utah Jazz, you got better defensively. Priority number 2, shut it down. Shut it down and go all in on this draft. You're already 20 games under 500. So you have to do everything you can to ensure that you have that pick going into the 2026 NBA draft. And if it can be 1 through 4 or even 1 through 5, let's say worst case scenario, Jazz really go on a tank and they have the worst record. They're at the same place they were last year. All right, worst record in the league, and they still slip all the way down to 5. You're still going to get a great player there with this year's NBA draft. You're still going to get a phenomenal player. So, again, that's your biggest priority right now. Tank it. Tank it, tank it, tank it. Do everything you can to make sure, Jaren Jackson, we love you. We will put you in, we will find a house for you. We will set you up nicely. Anything you want is yours, except for playing time. Whatever you want, except for playing time. Oh, you feel like there's a little, got a little, a little bit of a twinge there in your back? Yeah, we're shutting that down. You feel like your hammy's a little tight? Okay, we're going to shut that down.
Any little wince you make.
Any little wince.
Any little wince, you know what? You're not looking right.
That toenail, that looks like that could get infected. We better shut it down.
Gastric distress?
Hey, look.
Nothing wrong with it. It happens.
Rodney Hood happened to the best of us.
Happens.
And look, I wouldn't mince any words about it. You know exactly what the Jazz need to do, exactly what's on the table. Do not screw around with that. By the way, the great Tim Lacombe will join us coming up throughout the rest of the week. So not just tomorrow, but we will have Tim Lacombe every day, noon to 3, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that's kind of what the show's going to look like. I know we're all going to miss Hans. And if you want to hear the deep analysis of everything, and I opened up the books for you, everything, we're going to be 100% transparent on this. Our 12:30 segment, you can find it on our podcast feed in that first hour, second segment of the first hour of the show. I went through exactly everything that Lloyd and I are working for in trying to rebuild this show. We're going to miss Hans. We love Hans. Wish him nothing but the best. And hopefully we can still have him as a part of the station coming up in the fall. I don't know what that's going to look like, but look, you can take the guy out of radio. You can't take radio out of the guy. I think we're going to have some level of Hans in our lives.
But if one of his properties forecloses,
we're here for you, buddy.
Kidding. I'm kidding.
If you have to pawn one of those fancy microwave ovens. Hans, by the way, I'm not the one doing this. Lloyd's
I'm
only
kidding. I'm not wishing that. I know he would be like, well, of course you wish that. You only wish the worst for me. Oh, sure. Right. I wish the worst on a guy that I did radio with for 17 years. Come on. You only wish the worst on me.
Well, if you're wishing the worst, you failed miserably.
I failed, right?
Because that guy has nothing but good things happen.
Best.
Yes.
The best of things happen.
So,
I don't know if I've ever seen anything bad happen.
No. Well, things have worked out pretty well for him. All right. So, but again, we don't know what this thing's going to look like. So we're bringing in a bunch of people. Tim Lacomb's going to hang out with us. Matt Wells is going to join us for a show coming up next week. Like, we're going to use a lot of people, not just locally, nationally. There's a lot of people that we're going to chat with. And I don't want to make it feel like it's an audition per se. It's just we want to get a feel for what we're going to mesh with, what we want the show to look like. And we'll bring in a lot of different voices to try to figure that out because nobody wants to hear me.
Good content at the right time. I mean, we got the NBA trade deadline. This trade happened. Tim Lacombe, NBA-wise, is a wealth of knowledge.
Yep. And we'll even talk some hockey coming up at 2:05. Bill Armstrong will join us, more like 2 o'clock for Bill Armstrong. So we'll get your hockey fix with him straight ahead. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I get it. We got big shoes to fill. Hans Olsen, we're going to take our time. And the name, it's not permanent. We're going to find somebody that's going to fill in those big size 15 shoes of Hans. And we're going to get it done. Until then, though, we're going to surround ourselves with a lot of good guests, a lot of great insight, because heaven knows I'm not bringing any of that. So with that, let's bring in the general manager of the Utah Mammoth, Bill Armstrong. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain at all. Hey, I wanted to, are you you ever watch Ted Lasso?
I've watched a few times. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So he's got the, the memory of a goldfish. And because goldfish have no memory, so you just got to, forget what happened and move on. I really, that game in Carolina, that could stick with teams if you're not careful. How are you able to kind of move on from a loss like that and get things back on track?
Well, sometimes those losses hurt, and they leave a scar to some degree, but that's not a bad thing. Sometimes you have to go through some pain during the course of the season, and it kind of like it builds some character in your guys, and that scar that you have, it ends up working out for you because it's that time that one of your players doesn't really, he's maybe selfish, he wants to get a point, he doesn't get that puck deep at the proper time, and it turns around and costs you a game, and that player feels a little bit of the pain, maybe by a selfish penalty or something that he did that wasn't based upon the team agenda. And it kind of rips through the team and it causes a lot of adversity. And coaches are upset, players are upset. And you have to go through some of that pain to really become a good team. They've got to learn lessons. It's not much different than your kids. Sometimes you got to get burned. And we got burned that game in Carolina and deeply hurt, I think, our group. But, when you look at it, in the big picture, it's going to come back and help us in the end. And, there was a team last year that went through this process where they gave up a lot of 6-on-5 goals, and it kind of stung them at the end of the year. It caught up in the seventh game of one of their first playoff series, and they ended up losing because of they never fixed those issues that had happened to them during the course of the year. And so it's so important that when you go and you get stung and you have a hard loss, you go back, and you kind of go through it, you learn from the pain and let that pain fuel you.
I had a basketball coach once tell me you're either winning or you're learning, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned from losing. Now, granted, you'd like to learn a lot from winning too, but yeah. Those are lessons that hopefully can pay dividends down the line, because that was a tough one. But you guys get the win against the Canucks 6-2 yesterday, and how about Schmaltzy with the hat trick?
Yeah, that was great. He came alive. He was awesome. So it was just one of those games for him. He's just hot, feeling it, and he was able to kind of drive us through. So he had a big game for us. And, I love the way that, certain aspects of our team are coming together, along with him, our first line, with Kells and Krauser. They're really a good kind of elite line. And then you get into Yamamoto and Hayden and Peterka. They're coming along too. So there's some really good aspects of our offense that everybody's generating, but Smoltzy's a huge part of that.
Marino got 3 points. That's a new career high in scoring. Obviously, he's important to your team defensively, but just kind of talk about him as an overall player and what he's meant to this team.
Well, Johnny's a huge piece. Like, he's like, you can't create offense unless, your forwards get the puck in motion on the stick. And that's what he does. He moves the puck. And he's got elite hands. He's got poise and patience in those hands. He's got great vision, and he just sits back and he can just move. He can move the puck, and our forwards love playing with him just because of his ability and his vision to find the open guy in the neutral zone transition, and it allows our forwards to literally attack with speed, which is one of our assets. So he's certainly made strides from when we first got him to where he is now, and he hasn't even hit his peak, and he keeps getting better every game.
There's so much we talk about the Jazz coaching staff and how well they've done in developing players like Keontae George, and he's taken that next step. I got to imagine that's something that's a high priority for you, not only draft quality players, acquire them via trade and free agents, but also the development once they get there. How important is that to your staff, and do you feel like your guys have been delivering? Because it sure seems on the outside looking in that they sure have.
Yeah, I think it's something where when you come in at the start of the years, you put a lot of pressure on your guys to improve. And I always have this saying where I say to the veteran players, I'm like, don't get old, get better. And that's a lot of our culture about coming into the rink every day. And we're in a unique situation where there's not a lot of practice time because of the Olympics. So we play, day off, and it just goes in that pattern. And so when they come in for their game, instead of just doing like a normal warm-up where it's a 20-minute one, we add probably 15 minutes of skills, sharpening their passing, sharpening their shooting, difference. And we've hired coaches to get on there and just really work their skill sets. And you see it with our group. We continue to get better, not only the veterans, but the young guys. They keep taking strides. So that's part of our culture, is to come in and have that will to improve every single day.
Mm. Bill Armstrong joining us, general manager of the Utah Mammoth. I think I mentioned this to you. I remember Jerry Sloan, the former coach of the Jazz, who told his team going into All-Star break, don't get out of shape on me. And I remember thinking and back then the All-Star break was a lot shorter than it is now. And I'm thinking 3-4 days, can you really get out of shape? Well, you've got a long Olympic break. Are you worried about guys not just losing momentum emotionally with the hot streak you've been on for the most part, but also maybe taking a step backwards if they're not careful?
It's a huge concern. Anytime your team's off for that amount of time, it takes one day in hockey terms to get out of shape, So, it's a hard sport about cardio and just it's a different type of strength in your body, and you lose it extremely quick when you're not on the ice every day. So it's so important for our guys to not only go home and get to Mexico and get a few days to kind of relax and get, just rejuvenate everything and get away from the game. At the same time, don't get too far away from it and don't get too far out of shape. Spend some time on the bike, spend some time lifting some weights and keeping yourself ready to go. And last year, our group, was super prepared when they came back in from the break. We attacked it. We came back. We had a great, second half down the stretch. It was huge. Well, we're going to come back to about 25 games left on the schedule. and we've got to attack it. We've got to be ready to go in the best shape. We want to come out of the break in the most prepared team, ready to play for a playoff spot. So we got one more game to go. It's the most important game of the season against Detroit. It's going to be a battle. They're a heck of a team, but really, it's a huge game for us before we head into break.
Yeah, you talk about that game against Toronto. How important? And I know this is a silly question, but in carrying momentum into this break, I got to imagine it's really important to get a win and not let that sinking feeling of finishing off with a loss going into that break. I mean, just from a mental health standpoint, this is an important game going into that break.
Yeah, I think, the way that we look at this game, as coaches has always done a good job this year preparing our guys, but it's a game 7, it's do or die in this game. And we've got to have that mentality, that we give everything we have to get the win. You don't want to look back and just say, we're going into break. It's not a big game, and you let one slip away. We don't have the space for it. Our division, the wild card spot is so tight that one loss could just put you out of it, and then you got to spend 17 to 20 days thinking about it.
And there's always that joke where in the NBA they talk about they're all there physically, but mentally a lot of guys are already in Cancun, and those are the teams that usually end up taking an L real quickly. Yeah,
absolutely, and like I said, it's so tight. Every game is a must-win right now in the NHL. So for us, it's a huge game. We got to find a way to win it and stay in the hunt.
What do you think of Team USA's chances in the Olympics? It seems like they really doubled down on defense, especially goaltending, and you got the Canadians who are high-flying. Was that the right approach, or would you have rather maybe ramped up the offense a little bit more?
I think, when they went to the Four Nations, unbelievable hockey that they played, I think each team learned a little bit about their team and what they needed to add. So I think each team's kind of come back and made some adjustments. I think Team Canada got a little bit tougher. The U.S. have made some adjustments, too, in their game to be a little bit better on the D side of the puck, too. So it'll be interesting to see how it all works out in the end. And everybody's had, some injuries here and there. But I think Team USA, I got to be honest with you, I think they're the favorites, in my opinion. Going in, I think they're that good. That's how good they are. Yep.
So we had a guest on, a national writer, who wasn't really thrilled with the way that they approached the roster building, but you like what they've done.
Yeah, I do. You're never going to please everyone because everybody thinks, we got to take all the best players. But listen, there's role players that have huge amount of impact that nobody values really on the street value. But as a teammate and to block shots and to do the hard work and the grind and the drive the net, you got to have role players. They can't all be finesse Patrick Kane type players. So, you certainly have to make sure that you build a team. And it's not build the best, it's build the best team. And sometimes, the media don't like that when that type of building goes along because they're like, hey, you left out this guy, you left out that guy. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the management has to build a team. And that's what they do. And they had the Four Nations as a warm-up for it last year. So now going into the Olympics, they should have their best team, picked.
As long as the Kachucks start throwing fists 9 seconds into it, that's all I really want, or somebody like them. Then I'm happy.
Well, it's always great when there's a little physical altercation, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's such a heated thing, and you're playing for your country, and it draws everybody to television to see the best on best, really. So it gets everybody excited about hockey. Then they get to come back and duke it out for the NHL playoffs.
How much can that experience help your guys that are playing in the Olympics?
Well, I think for sure, just being around other great players to see the way that they prepare, how they go through the adversity, how they handle it, sticking to the team plan. And sometimes the good news is that you might have the most offensive player on your team, but when he goes to play, for Team Canada or Team USA, they have to change their role. I think that's a huge importance because then when they come back to your team, they're like, oh, okay, I've learned how to play a little bit more defense in this situation, or hey, I had to play this role on the team, and they get a better understanding of it. They're the top dog here. They might not be the top dog Team USA or Team Canada.
Saw Tej, the WHL Player of the Week, had a 6-point night the other night. How's his progression? Because it sure seems like he's putting some points up in that league.
Yeah, he's just been unreal. He has just simply crushed it since he's gone back to his junior club in Kelowna. And it's just been a real great thing. He was banged up last year, went through a number of different surgeries and was out the whole year, and he's come back just absolutely flying. And you love to see that. The kid's an all hockey kid. He's all in all day long. All he wants to do is play for the Mammoth. So he's someone that when you draft, you thought he was good, and now you see him later and you're like, wow, he's really good. So he's going to have a chance to have impact at some point in time to come in for us in the next few years.
Love it. Well, Bill, we appreciate it. Thanks for your time as always. Looking forward to catching up with you next week, and hopefully you get a day or two to yourself to relax a bit. I doubt that'll happen, but hopefully you can squeeze in some time.
Yeah. Hopefully there's a couple days.
There you go. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Take care.
There he is, Bill Armstrong, general manager of the Utah Mammoth. And I always thought that was funny because I remember distinctly, and we talk about Jerry Sloan a lot, and man, miss that guy. But I remember at a shoot-around talking to him and when he was addressing the media before an All-Star break, and he was very adamant about how guys can get out of shape. And the All-Star break then was a lot shorter than it is now. And I just thought, really? Like, you're talking about the most finely tuned athletes on the planet. There's no way they can really regress that much physically. Now, granted, keep in mind, look, you guys have all known my journey. I'm not the most physically fit person, never have been. So, I'm not of that level. So I'm just going off my own thought. Like, can you really get out of shape in 3 or 4 days? You've got the general manager of the Utah Mammoth saying that you can get out of hockey shape in 1 day if you're not careful. So I thought that's fascinating. And with a massive layoff coming off for the Olympics, it would be very easy for a player to be like, you know what, I'm just going to spend a couple days on the couch and I'm going to eat some good food and I'm going to catch up on my Netflix binging. And
one cheat day.
Yeah, what's a cheat day?
What's a cheat day? Come on.
And then, look, we all know this. A cheat day turns into a cheat weekend. And then a cheat weekend turns into maybe a cheat week. And then you're like, oh, I got to buckle down. I got to get myself back into it. These Olympics are starting to wind down. And so then you get fired up and you realize, ooh, I don't have that same kind of step that I had. And by the way, these trainers, these coaches, they will know immediately. They will know immediately where you're at. So, and this is a team that's got so much to play for. 25 games left after the game against Detroit. So they know that they are right in the thick of things for the playoffs. And if you go backwards, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, you're doing your team a disservice because they're playing so well. I know they lost 2 in a row before that win against the Canucks, but this is a team that's got to be firing on all cylinders if they want to make that playoff push. And I hope they do because, frankly, we've been talking about this for a long time, Lloyd. We deserve some playoff hockey. We want playoff hockey. We need playoff hockey. Let's make it happen.
Oh, I would kill. Okay, I wouldn't kill for playoff hockey, but give me some playoff hockey. I mean, that Carolina game, and I loved his answer on that.
Yeah.
Like, it's good to have scars like that, but I'm telling you, like, we've talked about how delicate the mindset is of the goalie.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, giving up 3 goals in 2 minutes has got to be. But you know what? It seems like he bounced back. Vejmelka bounced back. And
were you watching that live when it happened?
Yes, I did. See, and I was just like, there's no way.
I went back. I knew what had happened, and I went back and watched it on a replay. And I was, I'm still watching it, knowing what happened, knowing how it played out. And I still was like, there's no way. I must have read that wrong on Twitter. There's no way this happened. Because as you're watching it, even knowing what happened, you're like, I can't envision a situation where they give up 3 goals here. But
to be up 4-2 and not even get a point, where I'm really starting to understand that points are at a premium.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I mean, the way that the whole point system works versus, like, say, the record with the NBA, like, you lose, but a team that's behind you, or ahead of you, whatever, loses, and all of a sudden you gain a half game. But the points don't change. If you're off and they're off, there's no point change. It's all about how important 1 point or 2 points is. Like, it's crazy, and it's. I mean, you look at, like, how St. Louis went on that run last year of 11-game win streak or whatever, 12, 13-game win streak, And that's how they jumped out to that big lead. And there was the Mammoth could never catch them.
No.
And and right there you keep an eye out, and there's Utah in that in that one spot as far as the wild card. Like they're the one wild card right now. But they keep shifting. Like they lose one game, and all of a sudden they slip down to the 2, and they go back up to the 1, and watch them like they're hanging on by a thread right now. And this is fascinating to watch come down the stretch.
I remember last year Jay Stevens sitting in that chair right there, and the Mammoth were out of it by, I want to say 6 points, 5 or 6 points. And I look at that as, because you're right, you think of it like games standpoint. And so you can pick up games real quickly in the NBA. And we thought, and there was still a good chunk of time left. And I asked him how easily can that be overcome? He's like, it ain't going to happen. You're not.
6 points is a lot.
And at the time I was thinking, oh, come on, 6 points. They can do that. That's not a big deal. You get on a heater, you'll be fine. And he's like, no, that's the point of no return. We're past that.
An overtime loss, they get a point. It's like you're really trying. You're playing catch up is not easy in the NHL.
So when you look at the landscape of this season right now, and when you're looking at points being a premium, being up 4-2 with 2 minutes left, even as you mentioned, all right, you give up 2 goals, you lose a game in overtime. All right, you're still walking out of there with a point. It sucks, but you got a point. Walking out of that with 0, and especially after you got in the win.
Well, the thing is, it changed. Had they just lost that game, just lost it. I'm not talking about you just lose. It's okay, that was going to happen.
3-1, you lose.
You figured that was going to happen.
Yeah.
You got 4 points on that road trip with a win against Florida and a win against Nashville. The 4 points really was a success. But to not get those 2 points when you had it 4-2, I think it was pretty wild to see, because you're all of a sudden that road trip really turned into a miss. It felt like a miss, even though it still was a win, but it didn't feel like it mentally or, in the long run, because those 2 points were valuable.
And frankly, I think there was a little bit of hangover in that Dallas game.
Right, absolutely.
And you reverse course, you get the win, and by the way, Smalty with the hat trick.
You did what you needed to do, by the way, against Vancouver. Vancouver is not good.
No.
They're not good. You did what you needed to. They put the pressure on them. They kept the pressure on them all game, and so that was good to see. You did exactly. No hangover. They recovered, and it was good to see them do that.
All right. We are going to chat with the great Tony Jones. He's going to join us coming up in about 7 minutes from right now. So TJ will join the show. He may not be on the Jazz beat anymore, but that guy's dialed into all things Utah Jazz basketball. So we'll get his thoughts on the trade that went down earlier, in fact, about a half hour before we hopped on the show, a franchise-altering trade in terms of the Jazz and what they're looking to accomplish as Jaren Jackson Jr. on his way to suit up for the Jazz. And this is a moment when you talk about the rebuild process, this is the moment that you look at and you're going to point to and say, that is when the tanking stopped. Now, granted, they're going to tank the rest of the year. They need to get that pick, but this is the light that you've been waiting for. It's not the all-in superstar, but it is a sign of the Utah Jazz willing to give up significant assets to bring in a player who can be part of a big three. Maybe not the one in a big three, but certainly part of your big three. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're listening to Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, welcome on back. Scotty G and Friends. Okay, it's not going to stick. That's not the name. I know it sounds a little narcissistic. That's not what we're going to call it long term. We're just, we're bringing in a bunch of people, good friends of the show. We're going to hang out. We're going to chat it a little bit, and then we'll figure out who our co-host is going to be going forward. All right, before we get to the great Tony Jones from The Athletic, remember this segment brought to you by University of Utah Health, for you, for life. Let's give away some Jazz tickets, though. Not sure if Jaren Jackson will be in the lineup, but hey, could be. So here it is, your chance to win tickets.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and your chance to win tickets is right now.
Call this number now.
Call this number now.
Be caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. And you'll be on your way to Delta Center to see the Utah Jazz.
He fires the three. Hey, Hans, oh, don't do me like that.
This is 97.5, the ASL Sports Zone.
All right, it's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. You'll win a pair of tickets. See the Jazz and the Kings coming up on Wednesday, February 11th at the Delta Center, 7 o'clock tip-off. All right, Tony Jones from The Athletic will join us coming up here in just a moment. We'll chat with him and get his thoughts on the Jazz trade right here on the Zone. In fact, he joins us right now. Tony, I'm not thrilled with you right now. You're not my favorite person out there. Because
this is just not the introduction that I anticipated. But
no, look, Tony's one of my favorite. In fact, Tony is so much on my favorite list. You couldn't have waited like 6 months for my guy Hans to figure out he needed to go into the corporate world and make some real money. Like our timing, man, you would have been perfect. This would have been great. But that's all right. You moved across the country. You're in Philly. I get it. It's fine. But I'm telling you, man, what could have been?
I would have accepted. Like absolutely.
Oh, man.
Listen, let's tell the whole story here. Me and you have actually, I'm hoping I'm not betraying any trust here, but me and you have been talking about this for like 3 or 4 years.
Yes. You are made for sports radio. You are made for sports radio. You argue with everybody. You get in fights at the drop of a hat. You're ready to throw gloves at any given moment. And come on, I couldn't have created a profession that you're more capable of. Now, granted, you're a hell of a writer, and you do a great job on The Athletic. If you're not subscribed to The Athletic, get there now because Tony's the best of the best. He's won the guy lives in Philly, and he's still winning Sports Writer of the Year awards here in Utah. So for crying out loud.
Yeah, I lost that. Jay Drew. Shout out Jay Drew. Jay Drew beat me this year.
Yeah, well.
And shout out Bella.
Yeah, Bella, absolutely. But all right, so enough of that. I would love to have you on the air breaking down what you think of the Jazz trade as a co-host. But as a guest on the show, 30,000-foot view, what do you think? Did the Jazz nail this one?
I loved it. I love the trade from the standpoint of, size still wins in basketball. And, you're going to have, two guys in Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr., who are both 7-footers, legit 7-footers, who can shoot the basketball and handle the basketball. You're talking about one guy who's, pretty much a 22-point points per game guy, and who was a past Defensive Player of the Year. He's one of the best rim protectors in the league. And you're talking about another guy who can roll out of bed and get you 27, 28 points a night. 40% shooting on, 7 to 8 3-pointers a night. Plus he plays above the rim. You're talking about the length, the athleticism, the shooting, the creation ability of both guys. And then you're adding Walker Kessler, who's an apex rebounder and who's one of the 5 best rim protectors in the league, who has also started shooting the ball pretty well from 3-point range. So, it has a chance to be a terrific and dynamic front court. The Jazz still have some work to do, right? They have to find some more ball handlers, especially on the perimeter. They have to find some point of attack defenders. From that standpoint, I really do like them getting Vince Williams in this deal because he's one of the better point of attack defenders among guards in the league. They're going to have to downshift Ace Bailey, so in order to make this lineup work. So he's going to have to play at the 2, which means he's going to have to really get in the lab this summer and improve his ball handling. And it puts a lot of creation pressure on Keontae George as well. But, one of the things that this move does, it puts 2 rim protectors behind Keontae George. Defense is never going to be his thing. So, you need to have some protection for, behind him in order to kind of make some of the stuff work that he does offensively. But I firmly think the Jazz, if they, handle the offseason right, make enough moves around the edge of the roster, you're looking at a team that is going to have every chance to finish in the top 6 of the Western Conference next year.
So my initial thought was when I saw this trade go down was that if there's somebody on the Jazz roster that's a little nervous before the deadline, it might be Walker Kessler. You've reported that the Jazz are still very much committed to the long-term development of Walker Kessler. I know they've got some decisions to make contract-wise with him, but kind of, line up what this means for Walker, not just short-term but long-term.
Well, the first thing I can tell you is that Walker has a lot of interest on the market. There are 2 teams that I know of who are offering multiple first-round picks for him.
Wow.
And the Jazz are saying no. Both of these teams are in the Eastern Conference. I'm not going to, kind of betray the source and tell you who the teams are, but both of these teams are in the East. Both of these teams are offering multiple first-round picks to try to pry Walker Kessler loose. It's been well documented that the Lakers are very interested in Kessler. But essentially Austin Ainge is telling the entire NBA, you can go ahead and offer Walker Kessler a contract if you want to during the summer. I'm just going to wait until the last possible minute. I'm going to tie up your cap space for 2 days, and then I'm going to match the offer. So I don't know if that's going to scare anybody from giving him an offer sheet, but the Jazz are committed to having him on the team long term. And truthfully, they need him. You can't. The biggest weakness, Jaren Jackson Jr. has 3 very big weaknesses. Number one, he's not the most durable guy on the face of the earth. He never has been. He probably never will be. Secondly, he fouls way too much. I mean, way too much. It's almost a running joke how much he fouls. But the third thing, and this is why you need Walker Kessler next to him, is he is by far, and I'm saying by far, the worst rebounding big man I have ever seen in my life. I mean, the next rebound that Jaren Jackson Jr. gets will be his first. Now, that's not literal, but that's, that's, you get the point. Now he balances this by being, just an awesome rim protector, and he's a terrific offensive player, and, he's kind of a unicorn. You just don't see very many 7-footers who are natural power forwards, who move the way he does, who can score the way he does, and score in so many different ways. But there are weaknesses. So you need an apex rebounder next to him, and that's Walker Kessler. And when you put Walker Kessler's rim protection next to Jaren Jackson Jr.'s rim protection, you probably have 2 of the 10 best rim protectors in the league in the same lineup. So if you're the Jazz, I mean, that, there's some really scary good elements to that pairing.
I'm asking you to speculate. I'm not holding you to this, but ballpark, what do you think the financial contract, I guess, what kind of money are we looking at for Kessler going into next year?
I think the Jazz would love to keep him at around $25 million a year. I think Kessler's people want to get him up to $30 million a year.
Yeah.
Maybe even $32 million a year. So, and I see where both sides are coming from. Walker Kessler is, every bit of 7'1". He's just an absolutely terrific rim protector. He's a terrific athlete. There aren't many centers who run the floor as well as he does. He's, a really good lob threat. He's starting to shoot the ball. Before the shoulder injury, he started to shoot the ball, and he's become one of the best rebounders in the league. So, if you're, Walker Kessler's people, you're like, yo, this is worth a lot of money. And if you're the Jazz, you're like, I don't want to pay my center $33 million a year. It's one of the big reasons why they traded Rudy Gobert. They didn't want to pay him $45 million. So, it's going to be really interesting to see where that negotiation turns out. But, you're the Jazz. You have team control over him. So, it's going to be, if you're the Jazz, you're going to be trying to sign him for, somewhere, 4 years, 4 years, 5 years, and see where that goes, and $25 million a year.
Ben Anderson and I were talking about this, and he mentioned that, Larry may have preferred to be at the 4, but because of this, as you mentioned, especially with Kessler, you're looking at him at the 3. Does that matter to you at all? Would you have preferred to keep him in the 4 in the perfect world, or is that kind of, doesn't overall matter that much?
No, it doesn't matter. I thought it would have mattered a little bit more 3 years ago, but he's developed a lot off the dribble since then, and he's figured out how to get his shot off against smaller and faster defenders. That was a problem for him a little bit when he came to the Jazz, and so you could see the difference between where he played 3 and where he played the 4. But I think it's much less of an issue now. No matter where you play him on the floor right now, he's going to score 28 to 30 points a night, and he's probably going to do it efficiently. And the other thing that's not a problem for me is that, you're starting with these guys. You're going to stagger those guys, as the game goes on. So, Lowry's going to start at the 3, but he's going to get his minutes at the 4. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to start at the 4. He's going to get his minutes at the 5. Walker's strictly a 5. He's still going to play, his 30 minutes a night. So, it's just going to be all about, where Will Hardy, finds his rotations, where the sweet spots are, with his rotations and just kind of who best plays with what, and frankly, what the roster looks like when training camp starts in September, because it's probably going to look different than what it is now.
Is Keontae near his ceiling, or is there still a ton of room for growth for him?
Well, he's 22 years old, so, I think that there's room for growth. And, I don't think that we see, somebody go from, what he was last year to what he was this year what he is this year very often. That's kind of a really unique leap for a player to take. But, he's definitely got a chance to get better. And, one of the reasons why he took this leap is that, last year he was in the gym every single day during the summer. He didn't take a day off. So, if he, continues like with that trajectory, and if he continues with that kind of dedication to working and honing his craft, he's definitely got room to grow.
You see any movement with Ja or Giannis before trade deadline, or does that go into the summer?
The Minnesota Timberwolves are trying really hard to get Giannis. That's one of the reasons why they made a move today to duck below the luxury tax and free up some money. So if Giannis isn't moved by Thursday, it's not going to be because teams aren't trying. So there's that, and the job thing is really interesting because now you've traded Desmond Bane and you traded Jaren Jackson Jr. I've seen better leaders among 2-year-olds than Ja Morant.
Man, this is why you needed to do sports radio. Damn it, Tony.
I'm just saying, Ja is not the greatest leader. Okay, so you're Memphis. You have just taken away Jaren Jackson Jr. and you have taken away Desmond Bane. You have just now Ja Morant you've taken away Jock Landale.
Yeah.
who's also an adult in the room, and you've also taken away Vince Williams, who Ja doesn't like very much. But let's be that as it may. Do you want your rookies and your second-year players to have Ja Morant leading you?
I think he would like to take a shot at that. Hey-oh, sorry.
Okay. That was wow. So
need you here keeping him straight, Tony.
So I would just say I would have him out of Memphis with a bullet.
Well, I don't know how much trade power Memphis could brandish these days, but it would be interesting to see what they could come up with.
So disappointed in both of you.
Who knew Lloyd was the adult in the room here?
Watch Ja Morant in the new movie Tombstone.
He's your Huckleberry. Oh man, what could have been, Tony? What could have been?
What could have been?
Yeah. All right, my guy. Well, I appreciate it. Great stuff as always. You're killing it, and I'm always a big fan of yours. Don't be a stranger, and let's get you on more often. All right.
I love you guys very much, man, and I miss you. I miss you so much. So I really appreciate y'all.
All right, you're the best, dude. Miss you too. There he is, Tony Jones for The Athletic, now living in Philadelphia. Could have been doing sports radio with us. Hey, by the way, win big this Wednesday. It's the Win Ticket Wednesday. This week, you have a chance to see Brian Regan at Delta Center coming up on Saturday, February 14th. Get your tickets now at SeatGeek.com. All your tickets are available at, again, SeatGeek.com, and we're giving away tickets all day tomorrow as well. It's a Win Ticket Wednesday. Keep listening for the sounder and your chance to win. We'll wrap this bad boy up next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.